What up, everybody? We're going to do a knife review. This is a very special review. I'm going to review a custom folder from my collection. This is the custom folder design that got me interested in custom knives. And I'm going to tell you, there's been a bunch of custom folders come through my collection over the years. They've come and they've gone. But this knife, one of the first ones I ever got, is going to stay with me till the day I die, and I hope it's going to go to the grave with me in my pocket. And the knife we're talking about is a Crawford Custom Knives Kasper folding fighter. This is a folding fighter. It is designed by a guy named Bob Kasper. Bob Kasper was he was one of those guys that was considered the real deal on the inside community. He studied knife fighting for decades, starting with World War II era CQC. He was very interested in that, got into it, and studied and trained for decades. This guy was so well known within the community. In fact, he wrote articles for multiple different tactical type of magazines, including Tactical Knives, Guns and Ammo, Soldier of Fortune, and many others. A prolific writer, well-respected teacher, and a fantastic knife designer. And he designed knives, and then he went to different custom makers and had them produced. In this instant, this knife is made by Crawford Custom Knives. They're out of Arkansas. It's a father and son team, Pat and Wes Crawford. Now, Pat, the father, he started in making custom knives in like 1975. A very long career before his son came in, and his son has sort of taken over as Pat has gotten older. These guys are super well known, highly respected in the custom knife world. I can wholeheartedly recommend their work. Now, I've met both of these guys and some of their family, and they are super nice. They just welcome you in, and they talk to you like they've known you forever. Now, I had this knife made in 2008. I was going through this sort of phase where I was like custom knife, custom knife, custom knife, and I was spending more and more and more money. And this is the knife that really got me on that kick. I think that the Kasper folding fighter is arguably the greatest folding fighter design ever conceptualized and made. This knife is a brutal, efficient, stripped down folding fighter, and it is meant for 100% business, and this knife doesn't make any apologies for its appearance. You can see it's a very plain appearance. There's nothing fancy in the finishes or anything, and this knife is all about business. Now, a lot of folding fighters follow suit with this knife, and I would say that many of the designs are inspired by this knife, because this knife has been in production for, God, I don't even know. And like I say, I had mine built in 2008, and it was years and years that they had already been making this knife before then. So this is an older design, and I think that it's just so very special. I mean, look at this blade design. Look at this. That is beautiful. We have an extended clip point with an upswept sort of point. You can see that point is perfectly in line on the design, is in line with the butt end. In your grip, you have a great awareness of where that tip is and control of where it is. Once this knife is in your grip, if you have trained with it at all, it is very intuitive to use even under duress. The handle design, look at that handle. look at it. You've got this super deep, sort of tight radiused finger choil that just swallows your finger. You are not going to move from that finger choil. The center of the knife is it's a palm swell design, but most of the swell is across the back of the blade, and it's flat on the finger side, but it's still palm feeling. And then you come down to the butt end, you've got a very strong bird's beak butt end here. And when you get this knife in your hand, you are not going to under impact slide forward or back off of that handle. It's just not going to happen. I could think of no circumstances that you would lose your grip on this handle short of your hand being destroyed. All right, let's go ahead and go into some specs on this before I go on and on and on about it, because believe me, I can go on and on and on about this knife. I love it that much. Now, it's a full-size knife, as all folding fighters should be. You've got a 3.75 inch blade length, and that's 9.5 centimeters. Blade stock thickness is 168 thousandths or 4.26 millimeters. The blade width from the edge grind to the spine is 1.33 inches or 33.89 millimeters. The handle length, 5.5 inches or 13.5 centimeters. The handle thickness, 464 thousandths, so not quite a half an inch thick, or 11.79 millimeters. The handle width, and I measured up here at the pivot point, it's the widest point, is 1.46 inches or 37.14 millimeters. The closed width, I again measured at the widest point, is 1.68 inches or 42.81 millimeters. The overall length, 9.25 inches or 23 centimeters, and the weight, 7.34 ounces or 208 grams. Holy smoke, that's pretty heavy, isn't it? It is. This is a full titanium frame lock. It's fairly heavy blade stock thickness, over 4 millimeters. So you've got some weight there. But one of the features of this knife in the handle is this, that's 2/3 or 3/4 inch length back spacer here. This back spacer is in steel. It is not titanium. It is not titanium, and it is not lightweight. It makes this knife feel, if you had to use it as less lethal, you could beat a brick to death with the butt end of this. You do get the extra weight of the steel back spacer, but it feels so much more substantial in your hand, and you need that less than lethal, that impact usage out of your fighting knife. Fighting with a knife, and hopefully none of you ever have to do that. If you've ever seen the results of a knife fight, I thank God I've never been in one, because you are gonna get cut, and cut badly. It's not like on TV, okay? You're gonna get cut. But in a knife fight, you need to be able to not only use the blade, but you need the impact device, whether it's to pressure points, to cranium, to joints. There are multiple different ways that you can use that impact, and that back spacer being in stainless steel, while some people might boo-hoo the weight, I've got to tell you, if you could get this knife in your hand, regardless of what you feel about the weight, once you get it in the hand and you see the balance of this knife and the way that it feels in the hand and the sense of security that it gives you, you will see why they chose that material. All right, okay, materials overall. Now, I had this built in 2008, like I said. The wonder steel at that time was S30V, and that's what this blade is in. It is a hollow grind with a very large wide swedge that is also a shallow hollow grind. It comes to a very acute point. The grinds on this are fantastic. They're even. They're very well done. The edge is thin on this. It will slice. But you see that between the swedge and this shorter primary grind, you've got a lot of the full thickness of the blade towards the tip. And then you've got what would, in a cross section, because of these grinds, will be a diamond shaped sort of cross section there. And that gives you a very usable stabby point, but it gives you some extra reinforcement along this ridge without it being too minimal of a blade thickness and too thin and delicate of a tip. The overall design of the blade fits what this knife is. It's not really a utility blade. It is the edge profile is fairly classic, but the overall design of the blade, in my opinion, is more suited to the what the knife was designed for, and that's as a defensive or offensive weapon. The handle is titanium. It's a frame lock. It is full thickness titanium, and then you've got the steel back spacer. You can see that the lock bar cutout is sort of this wavy, stylized cutout, and that's because of the lightning lightning hose, because those hose, you got to light them up, But the lightning holes, and what I consider as transition holes for grip, depending on what your technique is when using a knife, and mine is a rotational transition, and those are in the exact right place for me to use as a transition point with this knife to transition from forward to reverse grip. And I do that quite a bit with the style that I use with a knife when I train. Now, you just heard me say that I train with this knife. I want you to take a look at this knife. I want you to take a look. Let's see if I can catch it in the reflection. Look at that handle. That handle is all scarred up. It's covered with snail trails and scratches. And, this is a custom knife that's been used. It has been carried and used for years, almost 10 years. This blade has been resharpened. Okay, this is not a Safe Queen custom knife. And I'm going to tell you, I've seen other people that had titanium Kasper folders, and guess what? Their knives look exactly the same. I've never met in person anybody that owned one of these knives in sort of a base version like this. I'll preface by saying that, in sort of a base version that didn't carry it. Now, Pat and Wes do a lot of fancy stuff. You can get this in a bolstered build with engine turned detailing on it. They do file work, interior and exterior frame file work around the entire parameter, exotic overlay scales. I've seen these with just total file work all over, and the engine turning with mammoth tooth and mammoth ivory handle scales, and those versions go, $2,000 and better. They are beautiful, and they are, in my opinion, Safe Queen versions of this knife. But in this base model, you're looking at, probably in 2017, about $600, I imagine. It was $550 in 2008. So I would say, $550, $600 now, and worth every penny. But literally every one that I've seen that is a base version like this in titanium has been carried heavily and used. I've seen people train with these knives if they were doing live blade training, and I've seen them train with dummy blade versions also. Now, that said, there's also a fixed blade version of this knife, which is additionally, it's beautiful too. It's just such a wonderful design. And it was originally produced by Al Polkowski, who is another custom knife maker, and unfortunately, again, Mr. Polkowski has passed along. And now Pat and Wes Crawford also do the fixed blade version. Now there is a fixed blade version that Columbia River did that was called the Crawford Companion, which I do own one of those. I should have taken that out so I could at least show it. But it's the same exact profile with black Zytail handle scales, and is a fantastic little fixed blade at the right at 4 inches or sub 4-inch blade length, and it carries over all the design characteristics of this knife, just in the Columbia River licensed version. But back to this knife. The action on this knife. This knife is the smoothest knife I've ever felt that is on a washer pivot. It does not have bearings. Of course, this was in 2008. There was no bearing pivot knives out there. I don't remember any. This is on washers, and it feels like butter. All right, it feels like butter, and it is very smooth. It is very easy to open. It does have a little bit softer of a detent. You can shake it open, but in my area that I live, there's no laws that reference anything like that, the ease of opening, and we can even carry automatics in Tennessee now. So that's not an issue to me. I've never had an issue with it opening in my pocket. You can see that the pocket clip is for tip down only. That is the only thing that I don't really care for on this knife. And I keep meaning to send this and have Wes go ahead and modify it, drill it and tap it for tip up carry. I just never get around to it. But other than that, the pocket clip itself is a sort of a classic 3-screw design. It's reminiscent of a lot of what you see on Emerson knives. It's reminiscent of the pocket clip that ProTech uses on their automatic knives. It's a good heavy thickness, good heavy spring tension. It's easy in and easy out of the pocket. You can see you've got plenty of room for thicker material here, but the tip of it sits fairly low and is flat. There's absolutely no hot spots with this pocket clip at all. It's a great design, even though I wish it was for tip up. But that's for another day. The overall fit and finish on this knife. Well, let's go back to action first. I showed you how it opens and closes. We'll go ahead and take a look. Centering is perfect. This does feature a carbidized lock face. It does not have a steel lock face insert. In 2008, that was not common in knives, but it is carbidized. It has never moved at all since I've owned it. I've never had any issue with lock slip. There is no play laterally or radially, and never has been in this knife. And combined with the super smooth action and ease of opening, it's a pleasure to own and open. The fit and finish on this, I got mine in a satin finish blade, which I love. It's a sort of a medium satin. It's not a super high polish and super reflective, but it is a sort of a medium polish satin. Very well done, very smooth. Everything about it is professional. Everything. The frame is in bead blast, which feels like silk in your hand. It feels like silk. It is so sexy. It just feels, it's like rubbing on the skin of a beautiful woman. And maybe even better, because you don't have to take this knife out to dinner to get it to do what you want it to do. So that said, the fit and finish is very good. And one thing that I like to point out is the fit and finish between everything is just so smooth. Where you see the press fit pin for the stop pin here, you can rub your finger across that. It is perfectly flush and perfectly smooth. The only reason that you can feel a difference is that's a stainless stop pin and a titanium handle, and when it was bead blasted, those two materials, the bead blast affects them slightly different because the steel is harder than the titanium. You can feel sort of a difference in the texture, and that's about it. The same as far as this backspacer goes. It is just perfectly flush and smooth. The way the handle is put together, you can see it is one side screws. So this side of the handle is tapped, and then the screws go in from the face side through the backspacer and into this side. Some people may or may not like that, but with that big old backspacer and the rigidity that it offers, I think that you would have to go far and above, well out of the range of what you should do with a folding knife before these screws being screwed into titanium is a detriment. I've taken this knife apart and put it back together multiple times with no issues at all with the thread work on it. Everything is just super, super high quality on this knife. Super, super smooth. Just organic and, like I said, sexy feeling. The superior blade design for its intended purpose. Quite possibly the best handle design I've ever felt on a knife as far as a defensive folder. It is so secure and so ergonomic. The placement of this jimping right here and this little indentured thumb ramp, the quality of the jimping itself is the best that I've ever felt. This is the most effective jimping I've ever felt in my life, and as effective as it is, it will not tear your skin up. It feels fabulous, and the placement of that thumb ramp and jimping is perfect in conjunction with this forward finger choil. It just, at least for my medium size hands and probably large size hands, it is just perfect. It is just perfect, guys. Bob Kasper did such a good job, and I don't know how long he prototyped this design out, or how many builds they went through to prototype it out. The Kasper or the Crawford family, I don't know that information, but whatever they did, it was just right. And you can see right here with the lightning holes, or what I call the transitioning holes or hose, you can see through this knife. That's an added little extra. I've seen multiple makers that do that. I've seen Ken Onion do it, and Tom Mayo do it, and a bunch of production knives do it. It's an easy way to add a little bit of flair to a knife without spending a lot on extraneous finishing. And even in the closed position, with the edge of the blade going right, basically centering through these holes. I mean, look at that. That's just a joy to look at. It is a joy to look at. The blade seats well down into the handle. You can't get a hold of the tip or anything. It's not super wide, although it is a wide knife. It's pretty thin. Actually, it's under a half an inch, at 464 thousandths of an inch. But it's not too thin. It gives you the flatness that you need to, under stress, keep that from rotating in your grip like a more round handle might. But even though it's flat, the edges are fully radiused everywhere, and it's a great radius diameter. It's just the perfect radius on it to make it look good, make it feel good, just make it comfortable. I mean, oh God, I can go on and on and on and on and on about this knife. On and on. In my opinion, it is the greatest folding fighter design ever done. If you like this knife, but you can't swing the cost of a custom, that's okay. You know what? Go to Columbia River Knife and Tools and get one of their Zytailed handle scale versions. You can get it in a black finish blade or a bead blast finish blade, with or without serrations. It's available with green, brown, and black Zytel handle scales. The fit and finish on them I've seen to be excellent. Of course, it's not going to be the same degree as a custom knife, but you will be able to enjoy all those design aspects, that superior handle, the superior blade shape. This is still a great knife, and you can get that Zytel version for like 20 bucks. 20 bucks, guys. That's badass. It's fully worth that. In fact, this Christmas, I'm probably going to buy like 4 or 5 of those just to give out as gifts, just to revisit this design. Because I've had this knife for so long, and I've owned the Columbia River versions for even longer. I probably owned the 2 Columbia Rivers as Zytel and then the aluminum handle professional for 5 years maybe before I had the custom built. So you know, probably 15 years I've been with this design, carrying this design, and I haven't found anything better for my hands. I've found knives that are close. I tell you what, the Cold Steel Talwar folder, which was discontinued this year, you can check my video on that. It's got an excellent handle design that is a more drop down handle, but it features the deep finger choil, the retention, the bird's beak, all of those things that make a fighting knife handle design superior. But anyway, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this knife. Look at this. Look at that. That is art. That is art. Not fancy art, but that is art, guys. I wish you could feel this knife. I wish you could feel the balance in the hand, the way it reacts, the way it moves. It is such a superior design. Pat and Wes Crawford do superior work. Bob Kasper, rest his soul. This design, I think, should go down in history as one of the best, if not the best, folding fighter design that has ever been done. You know, all of those people that were involved deserve a great deal of credit on this knife. I'm just a customer that paid money for it, but I want to turn as many people on to this design because it's not a new design. It's not the newest, fanciest thing. You're not going to see a lot of coverage on it, but it really is, guys. It is one of the best designs out there. And whether it's in the Columbia River version or a custom from Crawford Knives, no matter what the price is, it is worth every penny. Every penny, guys. All right, I'm going to close out there. This is probably going to be my last video for about a week. I've got some family issues. I've got to jet out of town, take care of some things. But I will be back in about a week, and we are probably going to do my first giveaway coming up here soon. I'm putting together some giveaway swag. There's going to be some knives and some other stuff. I think for this first giveaway, I'm going to do like a first, second, and third place winner. So there's not going to be just one winner on this. So if you have friends or anything, send them over, tell them to subscribe. To qualify for the giveaway, you're going to have to be a subscriber. All right? That might be sort of, you know, a subscriber bribe, but I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to do it, guys. And like I say, thank you. God bless all of you. And we will talk to you later.